Hello and welcome to the December edition of Spotlight. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Michelle Jolly and I'm the Brand Marketing Manager for FCM. Before we kick off, I would like to mention that we'll be leaving some time at the end of the presentation for Q&As. So please post any questions you may have via the chat window in the control panel to the right of your screens. A recording of the webinar will also be sent to you afterwards. I'm now going to hand over to Scott Reddy, FCM's Global Head of Account Management, who will be expanding on the subject of program optimization and the critical role account management plays in driving it. Over to you, Scott.
Fantastic. Thanks, Michelle, and welcome everybody. I'll just do a very quick introduction. So my name's Scott Reddy. I'm the Global Director for Multinational Account Management. Been with the company for about 10 years and started off back in Brisbane, the home of our parent company, Flight Centre Travel Group. I've had a range of fantastic clients around the globe and definitely seen a few challenges in my time and very much enjoyed partnering on the solutions. That's definitely my why. That's why I love the role. So that's kind of what this session's about. It's about understanding business needs and what can we do about it? What can we keep exploring to push things in the right direction in the account management space? So I'll just highlight quickly what we're going to go through today. So the agenda is really to take a look at the foundation of a managed program from an account management perspective. There's all sorts of great ideas out there, but we really need to understand a structured approach, and we definitely can touch on that and sort of understand the things that traditionally have worked and moved a managed program in the right direction traditionally. And then what we want to look at is optimization. That's definitely what the core of this session will be about. And this is not just to do with FCM, this is to do with just managed travel programs in general. There's a lot of things that we've tried and tested that work, but they're definitely ideas that can be implemented in any travel program with the right amount of effort. And then the other thing I just wanted to touch on is the changing landscape of travel. We do quite a comprehensive survey once a year with thousands of travelers. So I'm going to touch on what's changing and how's the needle shifted in certain aspects over the last 1, 2, and 3 years, and what does that mean for us moving forward. So that's what we're going to touch on today. And let's just have a look at how we kind of really fundamentally approach account management. To start with, at its most basic level, our job here is to understand your business, to strategize, and to optimize. It is really, we try and keep everything, we try and keep simplicity at the heart of everything we do. And so I hope everyone on the call is kind of, there's a lot of things that account management is, but at the end of the day, that's what we're really here to do, those things. And so just a little note on why you need an account manager. You're tasked with a lot of different things as a travel manager or a procurement specialist. And before I get onto the optimization side of things, I think it's just worth taking stock at what you currently do and how we currently help. And it's really a partnership from an account manager, from any TMC, to help you with the implementation as you onboard your program. Business planning and program strategy is critical. Reporting and analytics, which really translates to visibility in your world, is also critical. To sit down and actually understand your program, to look at your travel reviews and recommendations is also critical. Industry benchmarking, you do need a partner there, because if you're managing a program, you're likely seeing what your spend is, and that's really important, but it's also really important to know what it should be and how you compare with your peers in the industry, with other clients spending money in the same hotels, the same city pairs, and all that sort of stuff. You really need to know how competitive your spend is and how much you're optimizing your spend. Issue resolution, let's face it, we work in travel. There's so many variables that are out of our control. There's always going to be issues that we need to deal with. It's all about, do you have the right partner in solving those issues when they do come up? That's a critical piece. Program health check and survey, that's simplifying the the KPIs, the real sort of critical components to know whether you have a poor performing program or a very high performing program. There's a few metrics we can pull out to make it easy to see. And then FCM and industry insights, you really need a partner there. I think from any TMC, there's things that are just in such a fluid state still, like NDC. We've had to navigate GDPR and things like that. So what do we actually do from a partner perspective to help you navigate these things that keep popping up and making the world of travel a little bit more complex? So that's just a little bit of a core understanding. And I know we're here to talk about optimization. So over and above these things, what can we do to move things forward in your travel program? We'll get to that. I just want to touch on basically the fundamental aspects of your program. And if you have a solution for all of these things that we call the 5 Cs, then you're going to be heading in the right direction. So basically, we want to make sure that if you've got multiple countries in a travel program, that you're consolidating all of your spend. You're looking at all the different countries that possibly trade. Is there any leakage in that space? And across all different travel categories as well. We've got car, hotel, air travel. We want to make sure that you're basically capturing everything you can do, because the more you funnel your spend, the more leverage you're going to have. Cost management as well. I'm going to get into a little bit of detail on that one. There's a lot of different strategies you can do to achieve different percentages of savings. It's all about your appetite for savings and what we can do to address that. Compliance to your policy, compliance to your preferred suppliers, corporate responsibility as well. And that's not just traveler tracking. There's a lot of things that are happening in that corporate responsibility space right now. You might have heard of the 50 by 50. That's IATA's target to reduce air emissions by 50% by 2050, which is a pretty aggressive target. So we've actually had some clients that have announced their carbon neutral plans, and then it's up to the TMC and yourself as a travel manager to actually come up with a strategy to achieve that for your company. So that's actually got a lot of traction lately because that's sort of quite a hot topic. And then customer satisfaction. We need to make sure that we understand the different stakeholders, and unless we understand the personas that we're dealing with, then it's quite hard to understand their world and how we can provide a solution for it. So I just wanted to set the tone with a little bit of foundation and how we approach account management and have a bit of a structure. And the reason I wanted to focus on this is because there is a lot of products out there. I would say there's some vaporware that might sort of sound good but doesn't really solve a problem. So I think you just need to take a structured approach and understand all the key things that you need to tick a box for in order to achieve continuous improvement. And grow from there, not just sort of grab every new idea that pops up, because some of them are distractions and some of them are solutions. So it's really good to sort of start with the problem at heart and then see if it actually solves a core problem. So just moving on to the personas concept. If we're going to look at optimization, whether you're a marketing person or a tech person, you'll be familiar with customer journey mapping. So we as a TMC took a pretty deep dive into this concept and actually wanted to pick apart what does the travel experience look like. If you're going to do that, you really have to understand your user. And when we actually took a dive into this, we understood that there's many different experiences when dealing with a managed travel program. You have the traveler, obviously, they're out and about. They have very, very different needs to the travel booker. Who have very different needs to the procurement or travel manager persona. And so they're the 3 core ones that we actually came up with, but we're a company that actually believes in ongoing innovation and we need to keep things moving forward. And when we were doing that, we actually realized that there is actually a 4th persona that has a quite a genuine need that might be overlooked from time to time, and that's really the C level as well. How do you as a travel manager manage north, so to speak, and what do you actually give your executive suites so that they understand how the travel program's going? And they're not going to be in a position where they understand all of the detail, but how do you give them, I guess, visibility into the success or challenges of the travel program being one of the biggest costs of the business? So it's really, really been very beneficial for us to take this personas approach to understand the problems of each user at the end of the day, and that really helps us come up with the solutions, because that can just help us identify very specific pain points of very specific groups. So let's get into the optimization side of things, and like I said, I sort of just wanted to touch on the foundations of account management, and I don't want to discount what we do in the foundational space and also what you do. It takes a lot of work and effort just to plug in a program at a basic level. You need to navigate culture, you need to navigate time zone, currency, government regulation, travel and GDS content and language. So I don't want to discount what it takes at a foundational level to run a managed program, but this is about optimization. So I just wanted to put forward some ideas. Like I said, not all of these ideas are for every company. Most of these ideas will take work with either us or another TMC. So it's about understanding what problem we're trying to solve. But that foundation actually gives us a good framework into which to sort of launch our solutions from. So with that, I just wanted to jump into the 5 C's that I just talked about, but it's all about exploring what else we can do in each space to actually come up with a solution. So these are ideas that you might be able to incorporate into your program. And we want to do, I just wanted to highlight, we always want to start with a business plan. And yes, this is empty on purpose, but I think every program can have a simple program, a business plan like this, or a very complex one with a lot of figures in it. But at the end of the day, we always need to have a strategy on how to improve cost savings, how to improve compliance, consolidation, the customer satisfaction based on these persona user groups, and also corporate responsibility. So that's really a core sort of thing that we need to always have in mind and always revisit and never stop thinking, because then innovation never ends. It just is an ongoing thing. So we need to have a plan. So let's just jump into the consolidation piece. So like I said before, we can onboard a new client. We can get all of the markets that they have operations in. We can actually look at the air, the car, the hotel spend, and try and get our hands around the total spend. But at the end of the day, leakage is always a problem. I don't know many programs, if any, that don't have some form of leakage when it comes to travel type or market that just wanted to book with their own local agency or something like that. And when you do that, you're not getting visibility on the program. So something that we've really been working with and experimenting and growing is data integration. And that's it's not a new concept, I know, but I think in the travel game, we tend to just look at the TMC data. And if you take a CFO perspective, you're really just looking at part of the spend then. The TMC data is just part of the spend. You've still got the incidentals, the fleet cars, the cabs, the meal per diems and all that sort of stuff. So what we're actually trying to do is start to integrate the data and do what we call triangulation and look at your TMC data versus your expense data versus your credit card data as well, and start to pull into an aggregated space. What's the difference between all of them? Because that really helps us with consolidating and targeting leakage, and also seeing what the opportunities are to sort of rein in the program. And so that's just a thing that we're really spending a lot of time on now. And it's always a challenge getting data from different sources, and also normalizing the data, making sure it's in a usable format. But that's something really has been really useful for some of our clients to understand where their spend's going, where it's leaking, and what we can do to change that. And that idea has actually grown and evolved for us anyway. And this is just something to think about. If you have a full picture of T&E, then you're actually looking at the total spend. If you're just looking at the T, which is really the TMC data, then you're only really getting part of the story. So what started off as this quite simple variance report has sort of evolved into, how do we pull in expense data from different expense platforms and actually give our clients the full picture of the program cost, including, like I said before, your taxis, your incidentals, your seating upgrades. There's so much of your travel data that comes in under the ancillary space now. This is just growing and growing and growing. So this is something that we're going to continue to evolve, and I think it's a partnership with our clients to work through A, what data we can get from their expense platforms, and B, how do we visualize that next to your travel data to really give you a full picture there. So that's something that we've been working a lot on. Will continue to evolve, and it's something that you can think about for your program. The next is compliance. I really like simple ideas. If we try and get too complicated, that can sometimes be a little bit of a distraction. I think compliance, like I said before, compliance can be to your preferred travel partners that you have discounts with. Compliance can be to your travel policy. In this little example here, this is just a sample, and I can't ask you to put up your hands because we're on a call, but I would put good money on the fact that most companies have a travel policy that's anywhere from 10 to 30 pages long, and most people have never read it. And everyone's busy. You got to understand that and put yourself in their shoes. So this solution, or this little optimization piece, is a really smart, simple way to take the core of your travel policy and put it into a simple infographic document. We have a software solution that we use for this. It takes a couple of minutes, and it just is a matter of plugging in the key things that they need to know and circulating this. And it's just actually a nice, simple way to understand what you can and can't do on one document. And as simple as it sounds, it actually is always surprising at how few people make a travel policy easy to digest. And at the end of the day, as a travel manager and as account manager, it's really our jobs to make sure travelers understand what they can and can't do. And this is just a nice, easy solution. So this has been very successful with some of our clients, and don't discount it just because it's a simple optimization idea. I've got some more technical ones for you as well, but I can tell you this is something that's helped shifted the needle with a couple of our clients. So that's compliance. The next one is corporate social responsibility. I'm not going to focus too much on the traveler tracking side of this, because a lot of our clients and a lot of travel programs in the industry do engage with third party like ISOS or WorldAware. We also have a solution, but I'm not here to sell. This is just basically to talk about concepts that I've used for other clients or seen other account managers use. And really, carbon reporting of the carbon footprint is going to get more of a need as we go along. I've had quite a rapid increase in requests for this, and what we can actually do, and what most TMCs should be able to, is actually look at who has the biggest footprint. And it's not just about giving you an overall number, but it's about how do we drill down to a meaningful level, be it cost center, be it travel, be it department or division, and give visibility on that. So that's something that we've really had to customize a lot. I would highly recommend that that's something that you talk to your account manager about, because there's going to be a lot of industry regulation that changes within the travel industry, and also with as far as country regulation goes as well. That is a landscape that we're going to have to navigate that's been pretty quiet for the last few years. And how do you break down, and I'm sorry for the fuzzy sort of graphics there, but how do you break down long haul, medium haul, short haul flights? How do you break down travel class? Because someone that's sitting in a business class seat is actually got one seat on much more real estate on a plane, so they have a heavier carbon footprint. So we start to think about what are the different classes, how does that impact, what are the travel types, and what are the additional data feeds that we can pull in to actually give our clients and travel managers like yourselves proper reporting on who's actually having the biggest impact there. And so that's something that can be done in our reporting platform, I'm sure in most TMC reporting platforms, but we need to start to break that down to make it more digestible and applicable for the business. I really love the customer satisfaction. This is an interesting one. Now, I'm breaking customer satisfaction down to the traveler level, the travel booker level, the travel manager / procurement level, and the C-suite. And this is something that actually is based on a concept called decentralization of data. So basically what that means is, traditionally, you've had an account manager send you a report as a travel manager, and then you might have 10,000 travelers. What do you then do with that report? Do you send it out to everyone? If I tell you that your advanced purchase is no good, do you take that and say, hey, 10,000 travelers, your advanced purchase is no good? That's probably not going to be effective, because you're hitting everyone with a stick, regardless of whether they're guilty or not. They could actually be good, but you have to really, send these blanket statements out to the business, which, let's face it, no one wants to do. So something that we've been working with and developing is decentralizing the data. So what that means is not circumventing the travel manager. We're actually having a conversation with the travel manager and saying, what is it that we want to drive, and how do we help you communicate to the traveler and give the program a voice? So what we can actually do is send an email straight to the traveler, so you don't have to hit people with a stick. We can decide, let's focus on advanced purchase, or let's focus on preferred compliance, or let's focus on travel spend and rank. What are the things we want to focus on? And then we can actually set that message to send directly to the traveler, so that we've decided what we want to police, and then that just goes directly to the traveler. It doesn't have to come via you. So that's something that actually we use this on our own program internally, and it's really impactful because we all know what our ranking is, if our advanced purchase is good, what our lost savings are like on a personal level. I don't take it personally because the travel manager sends me a blunt email for booking last minute, because to be honest, that's one of my bad habits that I'm very aware of, because I get this. And it's just been a really engaging way to actually let the traveler know how they're booking, because a lot of people have no idea. They don't know how they compare to the next person. And there's some gamification ideas in here as well, when people will start to talk about, have I been to the moon and back? How many miles have I traveled? And it's actually really, really engaging on the traveler level. And I say traveler customer satisfaction here because it's not always a stick. Sometimes it's a thumbs up. You've done a great job. Thanks for booking in advance. And it really gives the program a voice without you having to go to the traveler and say, good or bad, or send blanket statements out to the business. So I really like that one. The next idea that we can just have a look at is the travel booker. And these guys are usually the forgotten group, I think. Travel bookers' needs can be so varied from program to program. They could be supporting high-level executives under a lot of stress, need a very specific booking process, defined and managed. And it's up to your account manager to understand that and actually work with operations to deliver what they need. But I think something that you can think about as well is, how do I engage that level with technology, and what technology is out there for that level? And something that we've been working with in development here is actually giving our travel app to the travel booker, so they can actually start to drill down and understand what their travelers are doing when their travelers get a flight cancelled, if they get something unexpected happens on their trip, if they're somewhere where there's a risk alert. And what that does is, it means that your travel bookers can understand what your travelers are going through without having to log on to any systems. It's just an app that comes through to their phone. So this is really a forgotten group. And I think as account managers and travel managers, we really need to think about, how do we engage this group with technology, and what tools can we give them, so they don't have to, be sitting in the office and then wait for an angry CEO to come in the room and tell them that the flight was cancelled and all that sort of stuff. What can we plug into their world so that they know what's going on without having to permanently be on systems and checking and stuff like that? So that's I think that's a good thing that we use on our app. And obviously this app is available for the traveler level as well. But I think that optimization, or the sort of next level thing that we have, is to give that to the travel booker and plug them into technology, because they're usually forgotten, I think. Next, I'm just going to talk about the travel manager level. Now, I'm not going to talk about reporting that we all have, and that every TMC has what you spent last month, all that sort of stuff. What we're starting to look at, and this has been very, very interesting for us, is to look at some different things. So we're starting to look at things like technology engagement. So for example, how many people are using our traveler app? As a travel manager, I want to know if no one's using the TMC's technology. Our app is called SAM, but that's kind of irrelevant. It could be another TMC, another app. There is, what I've found in the survey data that I've been looking at over the last few days, there is definitely a correlation between engagement with technology and travel tools and traveler satisfaction. But if you don't know, if no one's using it, then you're kind of flying blind. So we're starting to pull in analytics around technology engagement of our platforms and really understand how engaged the traveler is with the program. If they're not engaged and they're not using this stuff, then your satisfaction is going to drop if that data is anything to go by. The other thing as well, just from a different perspective, like I said, I'm not focusing on what you spend on air, hotel, and car. Everyone's got access to that information. Again, looking at different data points. Net Promoter Score is something that's been very, very insightful for us because it's the one metric that can actually go across different industries. It can go across different functions, different personas, but it always means the same thing. And by that, if anyone's familiar with this, the concept of Net Promoter Score, you have anything under a score of 6 to 0 that is a detractor, and anything that's 8 or 9, sorry, 9 or 10 is a promoter. So you've got a neutral zone in the middle, but this really actually allows us to understand what's the Net Promoter Score on a monthly basis from the traveler. And also we've got Net Promoter Scores from our different platforms and tools and OBTs and profile management systems coming. So that's something that we're actually investing in, because we want to know how happy people are with all components of the program. And we don't just want to do one annual survey. We want to keep our finger on the pulse. So it's actually been really interesting and just something to think about in your programs of how do we actually track this, and on a monthly basis as well, or just on a frequent basis, because everyone knows if you have a problem, but then you've got the data 6 months later, there's not much you can do. If you see Net Promoter Score dip, then we can actually create some workflows and get some action plans going from that. And then onto the C-level, onto the C-suite. I mean, most people on this call probably have a boss, and they probably want to know what's happening with the travel program. Very generic statement, but as we all know, the travel program usually constitutes one of the biggest costs for the business. So we really sat down and said, okay, well, we do reviews. The reviews can be big PowerPoint presentations that can get a little bit tedious for a C-suite to read through. So how do we actually create some analytics to give them an understanding of performance in their sort of language? So we actually took this sort of concept of a Bloomberg kind of stock market report, and then actually this is something that you can look at. And even if you don't know the program, we can actually classify the trend column there. You can see as low, medium, or high spends. So you can actually just see just straight from a glimpse what the low months are. Was it a high November or low November? And really give them in a compressed format so they can track that cost. So that's something that we're going to continue to grow. I challenge everyone to do that with their TMCs and other account managers in their own worlds as well, because I think a lot of the time, I think most people will agree, if they you talk to your CFO, they might know that travel costs them a lot of money, but they actually might not know, the benefits, what's going on. Is it a good year or a bad year? Is it a high spend or a low spend? And this gives them some insight. So we're just going to keep continuing to build on this, based on what we continue to learn from our clients in this level. So just moving on to the next one, cost savings. This one is something that's never going to go away. I think that's always going to be a challenge for the travel manager. Even in a growing business where more people are traveling, there's still pressure to make each trip cost less. So I'm sure everyone's been tasked with saving money. I've been asked before or told by clients, we need to cut travel in half. And my response to that is, well, you need to travel less, because it's the truth. I'm not going to sit there and lie to anyone. So this is a good little guide, and it's just an indicator. It's a bit of a rough measure, but at the end of the day, a lot of travel managers sort of have this really big drive to push bookings to an online booking tool, which definitely saves money. But if you look at it in context of what you can save with other strategies as well, the savings potential is quite small by changing book method. And not all trips should be booked online. Maybe they will in the future. The complex international ones might be fine to book online, but it's good to know what to focus on and what sort of ROI you can expect from each different strategy there. So buyer behavior, like I showed before in that FCM Engage solution where the email goes directly to the traveler, you can shave 5 to 10% off by changing how people purchase. Everyone knows that on average there's a zone where you purchase in advance, you're going to save money, and there's all sorts of different buying behavior things that you can shift. Some businesses can control that, some businesses cannot control that. Policy and supplier management is a big one. We, as a lot of travel companies do, have a consulting arm as well. So how much do you spend across how many airlines? What's your footprint, and where are you better off spending your money? That's where we see some really big savings in travel programs in general. So that's something that I'm going to drill down on a little bit, and demand management as well. So I take people taking same-day trips. Too many people stacking onto a meeting. We've actually developed quite a cool little sort of analytics piece around how many people arrive at the same hotel at the same date, and it's it's been super interesting to see how many people will pile onto a meeting, and that's something that we've actually been able to give some clients some visibility around, which just begs the question: do you all have to go? Do we need 12 people at this meeting? And to be fair, we're kind of saying we've got eyes on you. We can see through our reporting that you have a lot of people going to that particular thing. So, or it could just be, like I said before, same day travel. Was that trip necessary? Do we have to look at booking alternatives? And the other thing in the demand management bucket, obviously, is approvals. And that's an interesting topic, because it's something that if you look at the data, within our data anyway, obviously don't have access to every travel company's data in the world, but the amount and percentage of trips that are actually approved is so high that sometimes it gives an executive a really administrative task to do by approving a trip when 99% of the trips are approved anyway. So are you better off putting in some guidelines where anything under X dollar spend can go through because it's a domestic trip at a low cost, and then you start to put some sort of parameters around the more expensive trips? That's something to think about. So that's kind of where the demand management piece comes into it. And we have been able to achieve some very significant savings based on those strategies. But you got to think, what's your appetite? How much do you need to save? How much will you upset travel? And is that going to be an indicator or a cost to the business if you're stopping salespeople from getting on the road and stuff like that? But the one thing I just wanted to throw out there, and I think it's been an interesting journey for us, is the supplier management piece. So this you see on the screen here, it's basically it's a much more sophisticated level of analytics. Just it's a tool that we're launching called ACIQ, and it's a contract management tool. So there's plenty in the market, and these things usually do come at a cost. But what you're able to do with these tools really is see not just what your spend is. You can get that just with traditional reporting, but you can actually see what your market share is, or fair market share, because these sort of solutions pull in fair market share data. So airlines know what they can expect from you regardless of whether you push their contract or not. This gives you an indicator of how you're performing against your contracted term, as you can see on the bottom there, where you've got all the contracted terms under the goal name, the bottom left, and what the market share is, what the expected market share is, what your performance is. And so that level of analytics, as I said before, it usually does come with a cost. It just allows you to police and understand when you've got an underperforming sector. That allows you to then work with your account manager and operations to drive spend to your preferred airline, so you don't get into that zone where the airline walks into your company and says, you're underperforming, we're going to pull your contract. No one wants to have that conversation. The other thing it will do is highlight, do you have too many contracts if you can't hit your target performance? That's something that's really critical. So these tools, I think, are very we've been engaged with in developing a lot more with this sort of solution, because it's not enough just to see what your spend is. You really need to have that your contract term added in. And if you've got a lot of different contracts, do you have too many? What's the optimal spot for your spend? What's your footprint, and how do we direct your spend so that you get the biggest discount The other thing is the airline discounts can get quite complex as well. So this can help simplify that solution and see, you might have a discount on a T-class fare, but are you using that class? Maybe, maybe not. So that will help us go back and talk to the airline and say, hey, we actually don't have a lot of traffic for that city pair for that particular class. Let's lose the discount there and increase it on this other class where we actually are using it. So it's very, very, very sophisticated tool, and we've had a lot more sophisticated insights outside of this. So I definitely recommend looking at something like this, of this nature, within your program, because this can have really, really significant savings when we go back to that. And like I said, these are just kind of rough marks, but they'll basically tell you, what the best ROI is for your effort. So with all that, hopefully you guys have got some good ideas there. Like I said in the agenda, so we wanted to look at the foundation or the structure of account management, the 5 C's, the personas that we have to think about when we're coming up with solutions. I've given you some ideas or concepts that you might be able to take into your current programs or talk to your current account managers about, or you want to talk to us about. But I think we all just need to keep thinking and keep moving forward. And what we actually are doing within our account management team, and you might have seen a campaign on this out in social media and whatnot, is the fact that we're sort of, having a look at what we are as far as the persona of the account manager, and really we kind of have come to the conclusion that we are, more or less explorers or navigators of the program. So we need to think in terms of what can we keep doing. I know we've got a foundation in the 5 C's. We can break out of that. We can look at personas. What can we keep doing? Innovation never ends. We need to keep on thinking of what are the problems, how do we improve the experiences for the traveler, travel booker, travel manager, the C-suite, and tick all the boxes along there. So this is basically the sort of end-to-end journey, and I won't go into everything, but just some things to think about. Obviously we are here to welcome our clients into our programs. We always need to make sure that the solutions are tailored to the business. Change management is something that is wildly underestimated, I think, across the board in a lot of things. But if we're going to decide to do something and optimize something, who are the stakeholders? Have we communicated what the change is? Do we understand the complexity of what we're trying to achieve? Is it feasible? Is it going to create another problem somewhere down the line? And if we get through that framework of thinking and we go ahead, then we can really start to move the needle and do big things. I know everyone always does a lot of little things, but sort of thinking in that customer journey map of what we can actually improve the program with can help us achieve some pretty cool things. I think going across to number 6 there of testing the strategy, we always do try and test on a smaller group. Is our hypothesis right? Will our optimization ideas solve the problem or not? And if it doesn't, do we need to iterate or do we need to scrap it? There's some very, very good material out at the moment about innovation and the right way to approach it. But something that I read the other day, which was interesting, is that half of the technology ideas never make it, and then you don't know which half that's going to be. So you always need to keep testing your theory. Optimization is something we need to always keep ahead of, and then from once you've optimized and you've actually innovated something or a solution for the business, going down to number 8, is it scalable? Is it just available in the US market? Is it just available in the UK? How scalable is it? Can we push that across to all different markets? And then if so, that's great. If not, we need to communicate around functionality, which can always be a challenge. But yeah, so we really need to keep that framework, the end-to-end process, and then try and stay ahead of the curve as well, because everything's changing very quickly. Technology is definitely bringing more solutions, but I think it's also bringing some more challenges as well, because we all want data integration, better visibility, and stuff like that. So I'm just going to finish this with a couple of things. So that's basically the position that we're taking. So that's what we really want to achieve for our clients. Definitely moving forward is how do we continue to explore each of the components that I've talked about, and finally, just I touched on this a little bit earlier about we just received survey data based on 6,500 travelers across 60 companies, across about 50 or so countries. And just the thing that really was interesting to me is the different cohorts. We actually asked for demographic information, and you've got different age brackets. And something I see that keeps growing is the 30 to 39-year-old travel cohort. It becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's on par with the other biggest cohort. So that's, in simple terms, the younger traveler group. I don't want to use the M word, but the younger traveler group, I'll just say it once, the millennial kind of group is growing in number every time I do this survey. And it's not just one or two companies, it's a lot of companies and it's a lot of travelers. So that just begs the question, what are we doing for that group? They expect things to be a little bit different. And I think they live on apps. They want to be connected the whole time. That's why we're investing so heavily in app platforms like SAM. And the other thing as well is traveler satisfaction is very correlated to technology engagement and tool engagement. So I'll just say that I think it's definitely something that you want to keep eyes on, that will keep travelers happier, keep travelers more connected. And yeah, I think that's pretty much the world we're living and moving towards. So I definitely wanted to keep this with some time to spare if there's any questions. And the other thing as well is I definitely want to give you guys some time back in your day, because I know everyone's busy. So if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. And if not, and you want to chat, you want to connect, we're more than happy to. And basically there's an email address up there. If there's anything you saw that I just showed you that sparks interest, whether you just want to ask more questions, you're interested, something needs more clarification, I'm more than happy to talk about that. So Michelle, that's sort of it for me. I think I've hit my quota of time there. So we'll just might just open it up for a couple of questions and then wrap it up.
Great, thanks, Scott. Thanks so much. We do have a couple of questions that have come through. One of them just talks a bit about, you've spoken a bit about decentralization of data. Can you expand on that a bit more?
Yeah, sure. So that's basically we work on a platform. Our analytics platform is based on a platform called Good Data, and they are definitely analytics experts, and that's something that a trend that they sort of brought to us, not just with our travel program, but they're also the platform for many other companies. And it's pretty much the philosophy is we've held data hostage for too long, and I can relate to that so much, because as an account manager, traditionally you would run something, you give it to the travel manager, and then expect it just to be taken and run with it. But there's this I guess concept is really to think about the end user first. So where does the message have to get to, and let's work back from there. And then how do we actually create a platform that we can speak directly to that end user, rather than give it to one person then has to give it to another person, a travel manager that then gives it to a department head that then has to decide whether or not they want to give it to their traveler. We go straight to their sort of end user there. So it's definitely a trend, not just in travel, but it's something that it does make a lot of sense when you think about it as well. So hopefully that gives a little bit more insight on that. Anything else I can chat about, Michelle?
Just the last one around the FCM Engage platform, and whether or not it was accessible via kind of a hub, or how the travelers were receiving that information.
Yeah, sure. So that actually, as it is right now, is set up as an email trigger. So that's something that they would just receive into their inbox as an email. We database a lot of data, as any company, not just travel company, any company would. So we basically just draw it from the database, and we just basically merge that with travel profile information, so we know who's who, and we know what their performance metrics are on a personal level, and that just triggers an email as well. So it's definitely something that you need to discuss and think, is that going to work for your company or your culture, that you can accept that or not. There's such a range of rules around communicating to travelers. Some travel managers or procurement people can send what they want. Some have to go through a very rigorous process through a communications process. So it really, I wouldn't just launch into it, but it's definitely work for the companies that have the flexibility and are allowed to sort of do things like that.
Great. I think that's it for questions. Scott, thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. It's been really insightful. We'll be sending a recording of the webinar shortly. And as Scott mentioned, if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us.
Excellent.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.